Welcome to the Peru Tech Bytes podcast with Nick Damiani and John Mitchell. Our podcasts are designed to help teachers navigate the murky waters of appropriate technology use in their classrooms. Let's get started.
Welcome to the Peru Tech Bytes podcast, Season 2, Episode 5. I am John Mitchell, and as usual, I'm joined by my illustrious co-host, Mr. Nick Damiani. How's it going, Nick?
I'm doing well, John. Trying to stay somewhat warm up here in the middle of the North Country as we I woke up to, as my phone said, -0. So I'm not sure how that happens, but it must just be flat out cold.
-0?
That's according to the iPhone. Right. So either way, nice and cold up here, but all is well. Everyone's healthy within the family. So we can't complain there.
I'll bore everybody with a quick cold story real quick. Back in the late 80s, I was a policeman on the Air Force Base, and we were having a military exercise, and they had to cancel it because it was 42 below. And the reason they had to cancel it is that it was so cold that the mechanics' hands were freezing and stuff to the plane. So -0, I don't know if that's colder than 42 below, but it still sounds pretty cold.
It's stay inside temperature. That's what that is.
Absolutely. And I think we are joined by a special guest today, Miss Julie Moreth from Define Learning. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for joining.
Yeah, so we are excited to talk a little bit about Define Learning. But before we jump into what Define Learning has to offer, Julie, would you take a few moments and just share your background with Define Learning and education, and let our audience kind of know where you're coming from?
Yeah, for sure. So back in the day, I was a teacher. I taught 5 years of preschool and 5 years of first grade. And I had several children within that time, and it just became crazy. So I had an opportunity, probably, I think now it was about 8 years ago, to join Define Learning. And it's been a really great company to be part of and grow with. Over the past 8 years, we have changed tremendously and have more and more coming for our teachers. And one of the things I love about Define Learning is I consider it a living site. So it's constantly changing and being updated. And a lot of our suggestions of the changes we make come from teachers. So we are constantly looking for ways to improve it and make it more user-friendly for the people using it.
That's excellent. So for some of our listeners who may not be familiar with what Define Learning is, could you give us a quick overview of the platform?
Yes. So we are a web resource for teachers in grades K through 12. We were founded in 2009 with the goal of helping teachers bring real-world experiences to the classroom. And we do that through real-world videos that set the stage for the lesson, showing the practical application of STEM and educational concepts within a company or an industry through performance and literacy tasks.
Excellent.
So Define Learning for us as a district here in Peru was kind of a journey we got on at the start of last school year. It was brought to the table by our superintendent as a resource that he thought would be valuable with its project-based connection. So we actually started using Define Learning at the start of last school year. We had some training days set up in the beginning of the school year, and we put our middle school and high school teachers through full day training and integration support. And it's a tool that I think we may have lost a little bit of steam using due to this COVID-19 situation that we've all been faced with, where once our district was forced to go remote, and at the end of last year, we were in kind of survival mode at that point. And then as we started to transition into our hybrid model this school year, we are starting to look at different ways to provide instruction in the current model, this hybrid structure that we do have. So we're refocusing our efforts on Define Learning, and really because we are looking to provide instruction in a variety of ways, but also pull in some project components that may get lost within this remote situation. If we're teaching digitally and we're operating through Google Meets and Zoom meetings, I think teachers struggle to figure out ways to really have some of the interaction take place between kids, allow them to do the research when online, but also be part of that digital classroom. So just navigating the trickiness of all that, and managing the situation we're in, we really think defined learning could be something that some teachers can hang their hat on as a way to pull in some projects, get students collaborating online, even though they're in different locations. And that's really our focus with training at this mid-year mark with defined learning is trying to bring it in to support our remote learning initiatives. And we're also looking at, going into next year, how we can really promote the product in our elementary building. So what are ways that we can really maximize the tool with students in grades K through 5? So we are in the middle of, I would say, in the middle of the beginning of our defined learning adventure, where we've definitely set some foundation. We've gotten some positive feedback from staff. They really like the product, the layout, the ease of use, and the way that everything is linked to standard-based projects. So the platform, there's a project, and definitely let me know if I'm off in any way here. But if I'm the teacher and I pick a project, and I look at the overview of the project, I also have the ability to customize that project, correct?
Yes, absolutely, 100%.
So if there were some questions that I feel like I would want to add to the student check-ins and that type of stuff, like I have the ability to add those. If there was any other materials that I would want it to pull in to support any of the student research, I have the ability to pull in new material as well.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So, so from my perspective as the teacher, where I've kind of shied away a little bit from products that would force my hand into how I wanted to use them. I wanted some flexibility to customize the way that I felt it needed to be customized for the students that I had at the time.
Mm-hmm.
The platform allows me to do that.
Yes.
So it's got a great database from what I've seen of opportunities.
And one example I'll throw in there, and I always use this one because I think it's just so creative. We had a group of social studies teachers, and they took our backpack designer task, and they were studying a war, and they had the students create backpacks for the soldiers to wear in the war. So they took that task and totally put a new twist on it, but made it fit their needs. So that's really one of the nice things about defined learning. You can really take it and customize it as much or as little as you need to. So that's been helpful. And also with standards as well, teachers might grab a task and customize it even further to meet and assess on additional skills and standards. So that's helpful as well, because I know that is important for teachers to be meeting specific standards throughout their lessons.
Yeah, so we're, out of New York State. So when we get into the defined learning platform, the projects that we're working with are all tied to the pre-established New York State standards. So as a teacher, I don't have to go in and associate those tasks with standards. They're already associated, correct?
Right.
Yeah, so that just makes it even easier. Speaking on the backpack project, that was the project that I actually rolled out in the training that we provided in the middle school and high school last year. And we probably had 12 different groups of teachers all at the same time working on their project, and actually got 12 different backpacks. And they had to present on their backpacks, and they all had to have research tied to why they chose what they chose. It was a great experience all around. And I think it gave a good picture of what the platform can offer the teachers, and it gave the teachers the student perspective. I thought that was extremely helpful. So we definitely liked that backpack project.
That's fun. There is one at the 3rd grade level as well. So there's like a 7th grade one and a 3rd grade one. So it's nice because you can use it at both ends of the spectrum.
Yeah, so some of the content is the same, but I imagine obviously when you get a little bit higher in the spectrum or to the higher grade levels, like it becomes more of a difficult task. So we were thinking about that too, because, say we did the backpack project and, say all of our 5th graders do the backpack project. And then when they get up to 9th grade, maybe they do that project again, or as 8th graders, they do that project again, but now they can pull on some of the foundation of what they learned as a 5th grader and then take it the next step, and if that's something that they could use the past project as a resource to creating the new project, that could be a pretty meaningful experience as well.
Absolutely.
I'm glad to hear that you mentioned that there's like a 3rd grade backpack project and stuff too, especially since we're trying to get things going over here on the elementary side. So I kind of got like a quick 2-part question for you there, real quick. How would you say that defined learning can help support remote learning with what we're going through right now? And then after that, I think a lot of users would want to know how does it integrate with different LMSs as far as like say like Classroom and Schoology and Canvas and whatnot.
Yeah, so I know remote learning has presented many challenges for teachers and students. So in March, when things went kind of crazy, our curriculum team took performance tasks from our site and they customized them. Typically, you'll find anywhere from 5 to 7 projects per task. But what they did was they took the task and customized it, choosing the projects that would be more user-friendly for students to do at home, and made a tab for those on the homepage of our site so that teachers can just click on remote learning tasks and find tasks that are already ready to go and more user-friendly, easier for the students to do more independently at home. One story that comes to mind, I just heard this week, so I have to share it. There was a teacher I spoke with, and she was nice enough to share an experience. Her students were doing food truck entrepreneur, and it was 2 brothers, and they were working on it together, and they like didn't even want to come down for dinner because they were collaborating and working and creating this food truck with each other. So it's really, I think it's been helpful in some ways because there are things that students can do independently at home. And I think, Nick, you might have mentioned this. Some teachers have brought the students into Zoom groups where they present their projects to each other. So still keeping a bit of the collaborative piece to it, even though they're at home.
I'm glad you mentioned food trucks. I have a good friend of mine that was just telling me earlier today that they'd like to start a food truck. So it's just kind of ironic.
That was part of the conversation that I and John had on our way over here to set up for the podcast. I've got I don't know, maybe it's a pipe dream or whatnot, but I've got an interest in trying to set up a food truck. So he's just giving me a plug there. So maybe someday down the road, I could own my own food truck. So maybe I got to look at this project and put in some of the research that might be required to be successful at it. So love it. So when it comes to the integration with Google Classroom, Schoology, and those types of things, how does that play out with defined learning?
Yes. So we do integrate with Google Classroom, Clever, ClassLink. Those are LMSs that allow student rostering to happen. And then you can also take our links and embed them into other systems like Schoology. I know some of the elementary grades use Seesaw as another option. So yes, we can be used with multiple systems.
Excellent. I know like a district like ours, we're not a huge district, right? We got about 1,800 kids, but we utilize Seesaw in pre-K to grades 2. And then we utilize Google Classroom in 3 through 12. So having tools available for us that, easily integrate with our established, platforms, it's even better. Creates a little bit more of a seamless transition, especially when we're trying to bring on something new, because we can get it under that Google Classroom hat, or we can get it in the Seesaw. Our teachers are way more likely to use it if there's a nice transition between the two.
Yes, and it's good because then students are familiar with that system as well. So it's not making, they don't have to go and learn something else then. So that's convenient too.
Excellent.
How would you say that defined learning has been implemented across different grade levels, between like say K-12?
Yeah, and there's so many different ways to do it. I think one that's most beneficial to teachers, so we'll work with districts or schools, and our curriculum team in particular is great with this. They'll take their units or their scope and sequence, and they'll find performance tasks that align with that, and we can create a tab for them so that teachers can click right on that tab when they're in, let's say, quarter 1, they're going to do this project, and quarter 2 aligns with whatever they're learning here. So that's one way that districts do it that's helpful, and I think it's more beneficial to teachers because they can just go and grab that task right away if that's something they want to do. Some like to look through and create their own, but that is an option they have then. Some of the other ways they can use it, some teachers take defined learning and they use it as a culminating activity to kind of assess that the students have learned the skills and concepts that were being taught to them. So some teachers use it that way. Some of the middle school and high school teachers will implement it. They'll take, because they teach more in a silo type of environment. So looking to kind of collaborate and bring them all together with their colleagues, they can use a task across multiple disciplines, and say, here, you're going to teach the science project, you're going to teach the math project, I'm going to teach the ELA project, and so on. So there are so many ways to use defined learning and implement it in the classroom. I think that's one of the strengths about our resource. So yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I agree with the sharing of a project. So like our 8th grade team, we've got 6 teachers on the 8th grade team. They want to assign a project to an 8th grade student, and there's different components for each. They can each take their own task, assign it. So it's really one project split amongst, 5 or 6 teachers in one group. So it definitely has flexibility there. I like the thought of the scope and sequence and matching it up so they know, okay, well, in 5th grade, this is going to be the project that we work on, and this is why. And in 4th grade, this is the project we work on and why. So trying to, match up a little bit so you can still have some diversity within the projects that the kids are doing. And everybody can see that and access it easily. So creating, you said, just make sure I'm clear. So schools have the ability to create a separate tab based on how they want to organize their projects based on their scope and sequence. So that's something that you can set up for them.
Yes, it's called District Projects. It's on the home screen.
Okay.
And we have done this with a bunch of districts. And it's just, as I said, it's helpful to the teachers because, not everybody wants to go searching for that project. They want it, some want it done, they can grab it, they're very busy. As I said, I used to teach, so I know your day is just jam-packed. So to have one less thing to have to go search for it and have it done for you is so helpful.
Yeah, I'm going to bring that back to our curriculum and instruction coordinator. Because that was one of the questions and conversations I had with her. So thank you for sharing that.
Yes.
That is very, very helpful information. Yeah. Well, I think here we usually get tech questions from, our audience at large or our faculty per se. So I think we'll pause for this week's tech question.
All right, so this week's tech question is some suggestions on Google Classroom organization. So how to organize Google Classroom assignments so students can easily see daily work. So I know this was an issue that I think came from our elementary building when we have some younger students. That, of course, will trickle up into the middle school or maybe even in the high school, because I know students struggle with managing assignments and tasks when online in that digital space. So if the bedroom is a little bit dirty, and not so clean, then we can definitely think they might have some trouble keeping that Google Classroom organized and knowing what's due on a daily basis. So what is one suggestion to help with that organization? And this is what we've seen. We've had teachers that have created a topic that was titled Today, and then they list assignments under that topic of today. And the students know that when they go into the classwork in Google Classroom, they go to the topic that has today, and then the assignments appear directly below. After those assignments expire, the teacher has the ability to click and drag those under their more permanent topics. So if they have their math topics, social studies, science, ELA, they can click and drag those assignments once the due date is passed to the category that will keep them organized by content area. We do have a video that's going to be linked with the podcast that will provide an overview of this and how to get that organized, plus provide a few other suggestions to Google Classroom organization. And that video was provided by Steph Petro, one of our technology teachers here in Peru. She's fantastic. So definitely take a moment to give that a watch.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Nick. Julie, how would you say that defined learning can help maximize student creativity and inquiry?
Oh, that's a great question. So students, I think, are more engaged and excited about their end product when they're more involved in the process. So I think, feeling proud of their accomplishments and work and being excited to get involved in more of a hands-on type project-based learning experience, it allows them to collaborate with their peers and take on real-world skills.
I think especially with everything that we're doing or dealing with right now, as far as the pandemic and everything, anything that can encourage collaboration among students is definitely a huge thing. So great. Thank you.
Yeah, I think when we went into survival mode at the end of last school year, um, I feel like, you know, some may have frozen a little bit as to what to do to try to maintain that collaboration and creativity component, teamwork design that, you know, we had no problem doing when the students were in our physical space. But trying to figure out how to do that in the digital space and be confident and comfortable that the students are taking care of business the way they should be. You know, it's much easier to feel like I can manage the group when I can see them all physically in my space. And I think when it comes down to like the collaborative piece and the creativity piece, I feel like we lost a little bit of it, and we got more to the I'm just going to present my information to you through the screen, and do the best I can with that. And I think any type of platform that is going to foster the student creativity to work and build an end product and then be able to present that end product is much more real world skills than real world business skills that we're now seeing students need. So all these corporations went remote. They're all virtual. They're hosting Zoom meetings and they're working on projects independently and presenting to the group their component of that project. And that's a skill that I feel like is deeply embedded in defined learning. And if students learn how to take that task, okay, here's the products that I have to produce. I can do that. Here's the research. I have to go and find the information, apply it to my product, and then present it to my team. Like that whole process is what is embedded in defined learning. And that's kind of my big draw to it, and seeing what it can do for kids is it pulls in that real world collaboration, creativity piece, and it forces students to conduct their research and curate their information without necessarily being fed everything by the teacher. I can be the facilitator. Here are the resources. Go find it. Build a project build that product that's going to meet your needs based on your skill set, and then present it with confidence, right? Because they put the work in to get it done. And that's just one of the huge benefits that I've seen when investigating the platform.
I agree. It allows them more ownership of what they're creating. So, yeah, I think they just get more positive results in the end.
Yeah, I agree. They get more buy-in. Yeah, they own it, right? They own it, and that means a lot. When it comes to providing support for districts, I know that's something you do. You've provided us with support and training, and we've really only met over the last couple of weeks, and I think you've been fantastic in your desire to help our district and help our teachers, which I've appreciated. So what type of PD support does Define Learning offer as districts start to integrate your product?
Yeah, so with the license, the first step is a webinar with me. And those are approximately 20 to 30 minutes. And in those, I go over navigation of the site, customization of projects, how to assign to your students, how to grade their work on Define Learning, and then questions teachers may have as they come up. So that would be the first step. The next thing we offer would be, there are 4 PD modules with Jay McTighe. They feature Jay McTighe. And those you would have access to right on your homepage. So you can watch the 4 modules. They're approximately 30 minutes at your own pace, and there's a certificate at the end. I know a lot of districts like to use those for PD, and that would be my next recommendation. Then after that, we have a wonderful curriculum training team, and this would be a charge, but they could come in and do a 90-minute virtual, now it's virtual training with the teachers, and they take a deeper dive into project-based learning with the teachers. They may even have them create, virtually it's harder, but they can go through creating a task together. And then the new one that I love, and I think it's a fantastic idea, it's a cohort training. So the district would purchase for 5 to 10 teachers. They would get a license to this cohort training, and they would meet again with someone from our curriculum and training team 3 times. Each visit is approximately an hour and a half-ish, And they would actually go through the process of customizing a task together. That teacher would implement that task with their classroom and then come back and get feedback from each other, collaborate with each other and from our team. And then they have that task ready to go. So it's kind of building capacity within a district or a school with, those people who really have a deeper understanding of working through the task, customizing their task and implementing their task. So they kind of become the leaders of defined learning within their community and can spread the word to everyone else.
Yeah, so definitely different levels of support, right? Like it can be as hands-on as you need it to be, and it could be as virtual and kind of do it on your own as it needs to be, whatever. Really, it sounds like it's designed to be whatever, that district or, those teachers really need. So some flexibility there.
Yes.
I know you've been extremely responsive and it's been great. And that goes a long way with districts really taking something on, new. They like to know if there's a question, I can get an answer. There's somebody I can talk to. And defined learning has been really responsive with that. So that's helped us along without a doubt.
Well, it definitely goes a long way, especially right now where obviously with everything that we're dealing with, one of the points of apprehension for folks is, having to potentially bring something else new, on board. But having someone like yourself, who's ready and willing to help helps to alleviate a lot of that. So we definitely appreciate you.
Yeah.
No, thanks.
How would a district go about, trying out defined learning before actually, making a purchase and whatnot there?
Yeah, so we have an excellent sales team, and I would put you in touch with our New York rep, and they would set you up with a trial of defined learning so that you can explore. Maybe you grab some coaches or lead teachers and have them take a look at it, and then see how they feel about it, if they're comfortable, and then we can set up the next steps.
So is there an opportunity if we wanted to say, yeah, we're going to try this out in a fifth grade classroom? Is there like a pilot opportunity where we'd say, okay, for 30 days, we're going to have access to a project for this class and they're going to be able to put it through run through it, see how it integrates as an opportunity to test instead of just explore what it offers. But so those types of things are an option.
Yes, we do offer pilots as well. Yes.
Excellent. And then when it comes to purchasing specifically, districts, I'm assuming, can purchase directly through defined learning.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Do you work with local BOCES or COSERs and that type of stuff if it comes down to like state aid or anything along those lines?
So I had to write it down, but yes, we work with Madison Oneida BOCES, and I hope I'm saying this right. And then the other one is Onondaga, Portland, Madison.
Yeah. So that's out towards western part of New York State. So you do have the capability of working with contracts with BOCES and COSERs. And I know like in New York State specifically, there's an aid, like our districts get a certain aid kickback ratio, depending on if we purchase through BOCES and those types of groups. So there is that component when it comes into working with the purchasing of your platform.
Yes. And NARIC, that's another one.
Yep, that's another one as well. Yep. And I believe for us in the Peru Central School District, that's our purchase vehicle. Like we went through NARIC to purchase access to defined learning as well. So there's options for purchasing, there's options for piloting. It's a customizable program. It inspires creativity, collaboration, researching skills, database of tasks already assigned with standards and objectives. Overall, great package.
And it inspired you to want to start a food truck.
Got to go back to the food truck.
Hey, I'm here for you.
I appreciate it.
Well, I think we're about time for our weekly tech tip. Today's tech tip is actually focused on Zoom. We've been doing a lot of Zoom training recently. And today's tip is that you can use the annotate function right in Zoom. So when you go and share your screen over near the top right, there's an annotate tool, which gives you the same tools that are available if you were using the whiteboard function. There's like a kind of a lasery focus tool. There's arrows and whatnot in there. And once you're finished annotating, you can actually save that annotation to your desktop on a folder and share that out later on. And that is our tech tip.
All right, that's a great tip, by the way. We get a lot of questions like, how do I write on my screen and present it to students when we're digitally? And Annotate is one of the features that we can easily go to. So great tip. Definitely, if you're using a lot of Zoom, give that a shot. All right, so that is this is the end of the questions that we brainstormed that we wanted to get some feedback from Julie on. Is there anything else in closing that you would want to add about Define Learning that you feel like we haven't through the conversation?
No, I think everybody should have it. It's a great resource. I personally wish my kids had it when they were going through school, because I think it would have been really useful for them. So I just love it. And I'm glad, not teaching, this has been a nice transition for me to still be active with education.
And I know if anyone goes to the Define Learning website, usually if you search it in Google, it's one of the first hits that pops up. There's contact information there if they're looking at something they want to utilize within their district. And we'll share some resources with the podcast as well that can help spread the word.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Well, Julie, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure. And maybe you'll be kind enough to join us again in the future if we invite you back for some more questions, which I'm sure will probably come up.
Sounds great. I would love to. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. You've been listening to the Peru Tech Bytes podcast. Be sure to subscribe on Spotify, Google Podcast, or wherever you like to listen to podcasts. If you enjoy the show, be sure to share with colleagues and friends, and follow us on Twitter at ndemiani PCSD and jmitchell PCSD. Thanks again for listening, and remember, tech doesn't bite.